one. Mother and father and daughter and son. We gonna learn and plus have fun. Yes indeed, the time has come. Reach out to your neighbor, do something nice, return the favor. It's all good, we all get along. Clap your hands and sing along to the song. Young people, you ain't gotta do wrong. We can all do right, come on.
Just to make you think ahead, battle mind to mind, make you not be left behind. I put us all together to teach face to the chest, where you're learning peace movements out of your stress. Chess.
The Knights. They are the soldiers who protect the king. They move 2 squares straight forward, and 1 square either left or right. In real life, the Knights are represented by the people who make and enforce the laws which protect you, either in government or law enforcement. This is their story.
Again, as a New York City public school teacher, I think it's so important to talk to the children. I feel they have to be accepted. Everybody's different, and we all have to accept everybody's differences. And I think a teacher has a large part to do with that. If I accept all their differences, they will also. I would not tolerate anybody being cruel to any other members of the classroom, and so it was fun. We discussed bullying. We discussed people being different. We discussed being mean to each other, and then we talked about how we can help other students.
When you were a teacher, did you feel like there was enough things in place with the administration to handle bullying, or was it at a time when it was kind of overlooked and ignored because they thought the kids might be able to take care of themselves, something like that?
It's a good question. I found that the administration really didn't want to deal with it until the parents complained. It was up to me to really deal with what was going on in the classroom, to set the tone of the classroom, that everybody was accepted, that all the differences were accepted. And again, I think it started with me. I always said to the students, you don't have to like each other, but you have to accept each other. They're your classmates, you have to stick up for each other. And again, it started with me in the classroom. They always were there for each other.
And reading what you read today about the changes that, the different approaches now that they're taking to handle bullying, do you feel like it's a step in the right direction, or do you still feel like, it starts with the individual teacher?
I think it starts at home with the parents, and I as a teacher work very closely with the parents to show that we had to accept everybody and their differences. I had, again, working in the Upper West Side, we had different kinds of families. We had students with 2 mothers, students with 2 fathers, students with only 1 parent, and again, they were all accepted. Everybody's differences were accepted.
In July 2011, the state of Connecticut enacted new anti-bullying legislation, which requires that schools become much more proactive in regards to how they respond to bullying incidents. Not only has the definition of bullying been expanded to cyberbullying, both during school hours and off school hours, it requires schools to incorporate school climate specialists and coordinators and respond to bullying investigations in a prompt, effective manner.
We were supposed to meet with Senator Michael McLaughlin this afternoon, but unfortunately, we'll consider it a scheduling conflict. He wasn't able to be here. But him and his staff was kind enough to send us some information about what, as a legislative body, the Congress of Connecticut, or whatever they are, state legislatures of Connecticut, what they are doing about bullying. And he sent us some information on Public Act 11232, which basically is the act that handles school bullying, and they added cyberbullying to it when they passed that, or amended that act back in 2011. And essentially, it's interesting you mentioned the schools, and this Public Act 11232 It basically makes the school principal responsible for investigating or designating someone to investigate and address bullying, whether it occurs in or out of school. So they're basically saying that it's the principal's responsibility to address and resolve any bullying that happens within his school or her school. And they're also required to establish deadlines for investigating, reporting, notifying parents about bullying incidents. They're prohibited from retaliation against those who report bullying, so they're not, it makes it a safe environment for the kids to report bullying. And it also requires school officials to notify police when they believe bullying conduct constitutes a crime. So there's more obligation for the administration to actually involve police department and things like that, so it's not all covered up and hushed up within the school. Because they're also supposed to assess what's happening, make reports to the state, and kind of make it more transparent, whereas before, when we were talking about Joan, they kind of closed their eyes to it. So now they're kind of making it more visible and actually putting responsibility right at the top of the school principal. So I thought that was interesting.
Now, if the state senator had come, what, you had questions for him in reference to that reporting?
Yeah, I was just going to ask him basically what those reports showed. Is bullying rampant throughout the schools? Is it being addressed better? And is their new act or the updated act that they passed last year, is it helping at all? So I was just curious to get some of those statistics, if he knew of any, about the results of this new act.
I would imagine that if, this new act is really up and active, that I guess you could follow a bully. Like if a bully is in elementary school and they're bullying it in his report, you can basically follow him through the school system if this behavior continues to happen.
Yeah, through your permanent record that we all have in school.
Yeah, a permanent record that follows us all the way.
Okay, I'm State Representative Lyle Gibbons. I represent the 150th District in Greenwich, which is where we are sitting right now. There are 3 state representatives from Greenwich, and I represent virtually everything south of the Post Road from Byron to Old Greenwich. I've been in the state legislature for 12 years, 6 terms.
Good.
Okay? And prior to my being in the state legislature, I served on the Greenwich Board of Education for 9 years, 3 years as its chair. This was from 1992 to the year 2000. I had 4 kids who all attended Greenwich public and private schools from kindergarten through high school. So, and especially with 2 teenage daughters, I think I'm well aware of some of the commotion and the confusion that goes on in teenage years. The state has had a couple of anti-bullying laws, and the one that we passed last year in May or June of 2011 was really to address the ubiquitous use of electronic gadgets by all the kids. I think that we read daily in the papers, if not around here, but someplace in the country, that somebody has been attacked. Probably falsely, and whether it's falsely or not, they should not be attacked over the internet, through Facebook or through any of the other forms of social media. So anyway, the legislature passed Public Act 11-232, and once it becomes a public act, that means that the governor has signed it into law. And it contains significant revisions aimed at strengthening the existing anti-bullying statutes, primarily to take advantage of what is going on in the electronic world. The law currently defines bullying as targeting of a student based on the student's actual or perceived differentiating characteristics, such as race, gender, sexual orientation, or physical appearance. And actions taken through electronic communications or devices that otherwise qualify as bullying and are known collectively as cyberbullying. And I think that the bill passed unanimously. I think everybody's quite aware that we have to do something about cyberbullying. The bill also directs the school to form a plan as to how to deal with this. It also exonerates any school employee who reports school bullying, because that's one of the issues, that if you know that 2 students are engaged in something, you don't want to be the subject of retribution by the outside public or whatever, so everything is done confidentially. The bill also directs the school to come up with a means of, I think, talking to students and forming a plan so that they know what cyberbullying is all about. The act requires each school in the state, to carry out a biennial assessment, meaning every 2 years, of its school climate, using various criteria that the State Department of Education has designated. And that means, and the State Department of Education is going to provide resources, materials, and training on school bullying to the different districts. I think what they're trying to do is make sure that every school understands that the possibility or the potential for school bullying exists, unfortunately, in every school, in every group of kids. Because even just taunts and jeers, I think we all grew up with it. And to a certain extent, you can throw it off and say, those kids are just being silly, and you can walk away. But when it gets to a point where one student is targeted repeatedly, that is insidious, and that is real bullying. I think that the act expands the responsibilities of school employees, other than teachers and school administrators, to respond to school bullying incidents. So, if a student comes in and says to a teacher, somebody is really bullying me, I think that it requires the teacher to sit down and say, what is this all about? I think the difficulty is you always have some kids who are constantly picked on or perceive that they're picked on. So it adds another level of responsibility to the school administration to figure out what is real and what is not real. I would go to the school first.
Okay.
Then I'd go to the school board and I'd go to the superintendent.
Okay.
And if that didn't work, I'd call my state representative and say, hey, this is a law that you passed. I'd go to the State Board of Education if I had to. Hopefully it wouldn't go to that far. I think we've got a very responsible school board in our town. And I'd write a letter to the chairman of the school board and say, I don't feel that I've been adequately handled. I think you can demand some sort of a hearing. You shouldn't have to hire a lawyer. I try to keep it on the local level, and I try to keep it fairly low-key, because there are two sides to all these stories, and you don't know exactly what's going on. I would like to think that our school board and our school system would be attentive to something. The teachers should know, and certainly the assistant principals should know, if these incidents are for real or being made up.
Yeah.
And heaven help us that we end up with an incident where we end up with a suicide with a kid because they couldn't take the bullying anymore. I think that teenage years are very difficult, and at one point I was hoping that every child in our junior high and high school was going to be mentored by somebody. Somebody could, at least some teacher could watch over their 10 or 15 or 20 kids and have an idea of whether they are coming to school on time, coming in late, coming in depressed, doing their homework. It all has to do with what kind of relationships you have. People ask me, should my kid go to private school or public school in town? And my feeling, let's go back to elementary school. I think our system does a very good job of educating kids at the elementary level. By the time you get into junior high, what you should be able to do is you want to be able to read on grade level or beyond. You should know basic algebra. You should be able to write a one-page paper. You should know at least a cursory knowledge of the history of and geography of the world. Doesn't have to be definite, but just a little bit. But the most important thing you should have are some friends, and you should feel confident about yourself. Under prior law, school district policies had to allow students to report bullying incidents anonymously to teachers. This act requires plans to enable students to make such reports to any school employee, and require parents and guardians, as well as the students themselves, to be notified every year of the progress by which students may make such reports. So if a kid feels that they're being bullied, they can report it to anybody. Hopefully the kid would feel close to somebody in the school. And if they don't, I would certainly go to the school, go to somebody in the school board. And if you don't know anybody in the school board, and I think most parents do not, they can look online, find out who the school board is, who the school board chairman is, and write them. Or call them up. This is a small enough town, certainly around here, and I think in the big cities in Connecticut, it might be a little more difficult. But Greenwich High School is one of the biggest high schools in the state, and I think that our headmaster, Chris Winters, would take any incidents very seriously and do something about them. I think that it's true of all the schools. I think the biggest problem is getting a kid, especially if there's a lot of bullying going on in the high school, to come up and say, I'm being attacked, and to admit it, because that means that I can't handle myself, I don't know what to do about it, I feel insecure, who are these people who are constantly doing things, or the kid who walks home from school and you get a bunch of toughs out, beating him up or taking a school lunch or something like that. He's afraid that if he says anything, they're going to do it even more.
Yeah.
Or they'll do it to his younger sibling. But I think that what this says is there's no room in our society for things like this.
No, no, not at all.
Next best pieces are the Knights. Well, they're kind of nice, but they move kind of in a weird way, and they're not that useful unless you really get the strategy. So that's a kind of complex piece. They go right here on each side of the board.
One in the white, if we had a black and white board, but we have a brown and black board, and one would sit on.
Oh, so it's not like checkers where they just go on a certain color board?
Yeah.
White, okay.
Right, is that correct?
Well, yeah, but basically you could just say they're one move away from the corner.
One move away from the corner, okay.
The knight is probably one of the hardest pieces for you to use, but once you're good at chess, it's actually a pretty fun thing for most people to use. I'm really not good enough to use it well, but some people I know can use it to get checkmates very easily. It moves in a really weird way, and it's kind of hard for you to get the hang of it for the first couple bits, but yeah, after a while, it grows on you, I guess. I don't really like the piece though.
Next is the knight, okay? The knight moves in an L shape. So actually, let me put him in the middle of the board. He goes, how I always tell the kids is 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? And then I actually have them show how many moves he can go from this one space. So this way they can fully understand the versatility of the knight. And as you can see right now, we have, 6 pieces out? So that means he has 6 moves from this one spot on the board. So now he has 8 all around. Now what's interesting about the knight is if you move him over, he no longer has 8. He actually loses some strength. And he only has, yeah, he's weak, that's right. Now he only has 6 moves. You move him over, now he only has 4. But he's still sneaky. Okay? So that is the knight.
The knight jumps from one square to another in an L shape. Baby, you got it. He crosses 2 squares in a straight line, and then 1 square, either left or right. Either left or right. Either left or right. Either left or right. 1 king, 1 queen, 2 bishops, 2 rooks, 2 knights, 2 players, 8 pawns, 1 board.
Hi, my name is Sergeant Mark Zuccarella. I'm a detective sergeant here for the Special Victims Section of the Greenwich Police Department, which deals with juvenile matters, juvenile law, and crimes against children.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. And the questions, the first one I ask you is, the police become involved in bullying at what point or when?
Most of the time, and we get involved with bullying when the school contacts us. The state statute is pretty specific with regard to bullying in the state of Connecticut. It deals with acts that happen at school or at events that are school related, for example, like the bus stop, after school activities, to and from school, even at home. As of this year, they changed the statute where it reads that even if something happened off of school, if it affects the school environment, that will be considered bullying under the state statute. And generally, we get the phone call from the school or from the parents who have either contacted the school or want some extra help. Sometimes we get a call directly from the parents, and then we ask them, did you contact your principal or vice principal, and we direct them that way first, because we want to handle it within the school first, as with the statute, how the statute applies.
Okay, thank you. My next question, if not at school when being bullied, when does the police become involved and how?
As I mentioned, the bullying statute in Connecticut deals with bullying at schools, and if it affects the school environment. If an incident happens where someone intends to harass, ridicule, or assault someone, and it's a repeated act, if it happens in the school, it's bullying. If it happens outside the school, it's going to be one of many crimes. So really what we have to look at is if it's happening when it's happening outside the school is where. If it's happening at the bus stop, then under state statute it's bullying. If it's happening at an after-school sporting event, it's bullying. If it's happening at home on Facebook or on any of the various chat rooms and it's affecting the school environment, it's bullying. If it's not any of those and it's just two kids walking up and down the Greenwich Avenue and it's a one-time incident where, let's say, somebody was calling someone a name or somebody spit on somebody, that is not bullying. That is a crime. It could be one of many crimes. It could be breach of peace. It could be disorderly conduct. It could be threatening. If it happened more than once, it could be harassing. But the main key we have to look at is when it happened and what is it affecting. And again, bullying is, to be considered bullying, it has to happen more than once. A one-time lone incident under state statute is not bullying. But that doesn't mean we don't get involved.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to switch to get you from this angle as I ask the last question. Mentioned police can only come involved in the case when bullying becomes a crime. You just said what that was.
I could talk about it.
Okay, would you please? Okay.
With regard to when bullying crosses the line of being a crime or being something that, I don't like to say something that happens with what kids do, how kids being kids, because it's not. Bullying should not be tolerated. An example would be a few years back we had an incident at one of our schools where a group of kids were continually harassing, assaulting, and ridiculing a child. The incident came to head when the parent came here and says that he can't take it anymore. His kid doesn't want to go to school. He's going to have to pull him out of the district. The school has tried everything it is that they can do, but for whatever reason, this group wasn't getting it. We investigated that, and we found that there was enough probable cause to arrest 4 of these individuals for assault third. Now, it was bullying, but it crossed the line to become a crime. That line is not a set, hard-packed line. It's blurry, because we don't want to be in the habit or the business of arresting kids for when they're learning how to deal with people, they're learning how to interact with people. When they cross, there is certain lines. For example, you injure someone, that will be criminal, and you will be investigated for that. But when it's just the taunting and the teasing, we try and handle that differently. We try and handle that with conflict resolution. We try and handle that with working with the schools, and the schools mostly will do that. So again, there isn't no real set thing what makes it a crime, what doesn't make it a crime. Really, it's depending on the case. And again, bullying is not something you can be arrested for. It's something that happens that you get in trouble for. And to be arrested has to be one of the many crimes. Until a legislator makes until they make it a crime, then we'll have to deal with that. But we have arrested a few kids for what would be called bullying in the past, yes.
Okay. Anything else you want to add from the program? Anything that you think would stand out that we could use?
So if your child is bullied, here's the thing. When our children, for all of their 18 years of their life, are at school 8 hours, 7 hours of the day, they have to have somebody at school, an adult, that they can go to and talk to. So for your child, you should ask your child, do you have someone you can go to and talk to for in case something like this happened? If you're being bullied, who can you talk to? Is it your teacher? Is it your guidance counselor? Is it the principal? They need to tell an adult. If it's happening outside, out of school, they're being picked on or harassed, they should be able to tell you. They need to be made aware of that. That telling is not tattling when it comes to that. That's how they have to protect themselves. Second, they should travel in groups. The bullies generally tend to be one. And the more people they have around them, the less it is they can be singled out. And another thing we tell them with regard to cyberbullying, which is bullying on the internet, do not reply, do not get sucked into the name calling, do not become the bully. If someone's picking on you in a chat room or on Facebook, defriend them. Have your parents report them to Facebook or Yahoo or AOL, and they'll have them kicked off of that particular chat room. And lastly, if you find that your friends aren't your friends and they are bullies, join another group. Take up an after-school activity. There's many people in their child's life that they need to be aware of that they're going to meet and is going to be their friends. Other than that, confidence is the best way to help your child. So the more you talk to them about it, the more they know how to handle situations, the better it is they'll be, and it's a skill set they'll have for when they get older that they can use.
Teach one, mother and father and daughter and son. We gonna learn and plus have fun. Yes indeed, the time has come. Reach out to your neighbor, do something nice, return the favor. It's all good, we all get along. Clap your hands and sing along to the song. Young people, you ain't gotta do wrong. We can all do right, come on.